So another fresh week has arrived here, and on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every week I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you the viewers to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, there have been some interesting developments on the free agency front, and training camp is also right around the corner, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from EC, and he says that after being labeled as the next LeBron James, Ben Simmons will end up retiring before LeBron himself. So if someone were to tell you something like this 5 years ago, people would look at you like a crazy person for being so pessimistic. But as things stand in the year 2025, recent news just came out that kind of substantiates a take like this, and the whole situation is honestly just sad all around. I'm not going to shy away from the fact that when Ben Simmons was early in his career with the 76ers, I was a big-time believer in him and thought his upside was genuinely superstar-esque. The things he was able to do on both ends of the floor at his size were out of this world, and in those seasons, he took home the Rookie of the Year award, he was named First Team All-Defense twice, he was a multiple-time All-Star, he was named to the All-NBA Third Team, and he led the league in steals one year as well. His ability to defend all 5 positions at 6'10", while also having immense ball handling talent and truly elite feel for passing the ball and making plays for those around him, were drawing Magic Johnson comparisons at some points too, but his downfall has always been the mental side of the game, at least at the start. It became clear pretty quickly that Ben Simmons was just flat out afraid of shooting the basketball outside of the paint. There was some sort of mental block that game after game prevented him from even being willing to attempt shooting the ball from the perimeter, which made him incredibly predictable and in the biggest moments made him very easy to guard, thus shrinking the spacing of the team as a whole and minimizing his ability to impact important playoff games. Then the back injury happened, and once you start to suffer from a bad back, your athleticism may never fully recover, and that's also what we've seen happen to Simmons in his career post-Philadelphia. Throw in a little bit of laziness to the mix from him, and all of that brings us to the present, where Ben Simmons just finished another season being pretty much a complete non-factor for 2 different teams, and remains an unsigned free agent as we speak. The news that broke this week was that Simmons was dropped by his agent because the agent didn't feel like dealing with him anymore after Ben told him that he had no interest in holding discussions with the New York Knicks, who wanted to potentially sign him to a minimum contract. If Ben is truly holding out for a bigger offer to come his way, then he is going to be disappointed when training camp starts up and he still has no lucrative offers on the table. He's a shell of his former self, with a bad work ethic and nagging injuries. Teams are well past the point of taking a swing on him for much more. Plus, from Simmons' perspective, if he doesn't love the game the way most of these other athletes around the league do, then retiring is probably the next step for him. He's got $100 million in his bank account and is set for life, so if he's not driven to revive his own career, then he honestly doesn't have to. He's just going to be viewed as a massive disappointment who never came close to reaching his potential when it's all said and done. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Short Balla, and he says that this year the MVP race will switch up, with Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo battling it out for the award over Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Preseason award predictions, especially when it comes to MVP predictions, are always funny because I've noticed that people just refuse to make the obvious predictions in hope that they can stand out from the rest of the pack. The MVP award for better part of a decade now has been pretty predictable, yet when you look at all of the conversations surrounding the award leading into each of these seasons, you see a lot of talk about players that just never had a real chance. The only real outlier here is Russell Westbrook in 2017 doing the unthinkable, carrying the Thunder to the playoffs post Kevin Durant, averaging a triple-double and winning the MVP that year. When Giannis was winning his MVPs, he and the Bucks were already one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and Giannis's two-way dominance was already cementing himself as one of the best players in the world. Then after that, Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid literally went 4 years in a row, finishing number 1 and number 2 in the MVP race, and yet before each of those seasons, fans would be predicting new names that never stacked up with them. Last season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the runner-up in the MVP race behind Nikola Jokic, and this season, Shai took the trophy home with Jokic finishing predictably right behind him. The recipe for an MVP winner is a player that produces at the truly highest level, has been in the mix before, and more often than not is leading their team to a top standing or near the top of the standings. There are, of course, a few outliers to these barometers, but they are few and far between. So taking all of that and applying it to the take at hand here, no, I don't think either Luka Doncic or Giannis Antetokounmpo will be winning the MVP this season. The Bucks are coming off of 2 painfully mediocre seasons in a row, and now they've lost Damian Lillard and tried to replace him with Miles Turner, who, I'm sorry, is not going to shoot Milwaukee up the standings. There's a better chance of Giannis requesting a trade at the trade deadline than there is of the Bucks finishing near the top of the East this year. For Luka Doncic, I know there are going to be a lot of people that disagree with me on this, but I don't see the Lakers repeating their 3rd place finish in the Western Conference standings. Teams like the Thunder and Rockets are not going anywhere ahead of them. The Clippers and Nuggets are massively improved. The Timberwolves are carrying a lot of momentum and now have a full season playing together as a core, and the Warriors were red hot after the addition of Jimmy Butler, so they'll be in the mix near the top 2. There's a real chance that the Lakers are near the play-in tournament range of the standings, and the truth is, you're not winning MVP as the 7 seed. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Paul, and he says that the Minnesota Timberwolves playoff run last year was fool's gold, as a big team who didn't play against a real threat until the Thunder in the conference finals. Looking only at the Timberwolves' run this past postseason, I can understand why it may not feel like the toughest road traveled. In the first round, they faced off against a Lakers team with 0 playable big men, which forced players like Rui Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Jared Vanderbilt to all take turns playing minutes at center for stretches at a time, and obviously, that's a pretty big disadvantage against a Timberwolves team with a stacked front court built on physicality, size, and brute force. Julius Randle is one of the most physical stars in the game, doing a lot of dirty work around the basket, trying to outmuscle you. And if you don't have anyone that can match that, then he's going to look great like he did in that series. Rudy Gobert also may not have the greatest postseason track record, but his size alone makes rebounding a whole lot easier, battling against a bunch of 6'8" guys. Then, in the second round of the playoffs after that series, they faced off against the Golden State Warriors in what should have been a hard-fought battle of a series, but unfortunately Steph Curry went down with an injury in the first game of that series, and from there the Warriors were severely outmanned and never stood much of a chance. I get why people say they had an easy run, but at the same time, I'm vehemently against the notion of the original take writing the Wolves off as frauds, because they were also in the conference finals the year before this. Anthony Edwards is emerging as one of the league's great young playoff risers, and has no fear taking on big matchups under the bright lights and attacking them head-on. The Wolves have a strong, well-balanced starting lineup with adequate depth at most positions, but unfortunately, one of the most important positions, the point guard spot, has been their weak spot, and will continue to be such because they didn't really do anything to address it this offseason. The Timberwolves deserve to be in the conversation amongst the other contenders, but I also don't think they did enough to get over the hump to make the NBA Finals this year either, because Mike Conley is still their point guard, and is about to turn 38 years old, looking like a complete shell of his former self out on the floor. Behind him, they're banking on a year 2 leap from Rob Dillingham, who I am high on as a prospect, but at this point in time, where he is physically, makes him still very much a prospect, and I don't think he's strong enough or big enough yet to handle the rigors of playing playoff defense at this point in time, so he would be an easy target for the opposition. The Western Conference just got even stronger this summer with the Rockets, Nuggets, and Clippers all making aggressive additions, and a team like the Thunder is still ready to run things back at the top, so even making it back to the conference finals again is a tall task, but none of that discredits the run that they've made over the last 2 seasons. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.